Most games aren't decided by the player's skill with the ball, they're decided by the cheers of the crowd behind them. Every NBA team plays better at home. Not because the court is different, not because the hoops are secretly wider. They win more because 18,000 people are screaming that they're going to win, and it may just be that you've been playing every game of your life as an away game. Let me introduce you to two guys standing in a Starbucks, and sitting at a table by the window, alone, nursing an iced latte, is Helen of Troy. Yes, that Helen. The face that launched 1,000 ships. The woman wars were fought over, and somehow she's just here, drinking coffee. The first guy, let's call him Marcus, walks over. Hey, gorgeous. Helen barely looks up from her cup. Move along, sailor. He retreats. Rejected. The second guy, let's call him David, approaches next. She's already irritated. Can I just drink my coffee in peace? Another rejection. Same outcome, same woman, same word. No. But here's where their stories begin to split. Marcus returns to his friend Nellie. He tells her what happened, the humiliation, the dismissal, and Nellie, as predictable as gravity, pulls him further down. Women these days, she says. The game is rigged. David returns to his friend Pete. Same story, same rejection. But Pete's face lights up. Pete looks at him as if he has just climbed a mountain. Did you see what you just did? You walked up to Helen of Troy. Helen of Troy? You actually took the shot? Nothing you ever do from this point forward will feel as hard as that. Same failure. Two completely different translations. They both come back to the same Starbucks the next day. And wouldn't you know it, Cleopatra is sitting in the corner. I know what you're thinking. What exactly are they putting in the coffee at this place? But stay with me. Marcus spots her. His heart jumps. But then he feels Nellie's hand on his shoulder. That look. We just went through this yesterday with Helen. It's a waste of time, he nods. They get their coffee, they walk out, opportunity evaporates. David walks in, sees Cleopatra, looks at Pete. Pete gives him that nod, the one that says, you've already proven you can do this. Go. David approaches. I know you're probably sick of guys coming over and bothering you. You probably just want to drink your coffee. She smiles, actually smiles. You're the first person who's come over all day. Not many people have the nerve to just walk up to Cleopatra. They talk. They bond over their shared love of cats. They get married. What happened here? Two guys. Similar courage initially, similar circumstances, completely different destinations. The difference wasn't talent, it wasn't luck, it wasn't even Helen or Cleopatra. The difference was the translation machine each of them was plugged into. Think of your social circle as a translator standing between you and every experience you have. Something happens to you, and before you can even process it, that translator is already whispering in your ear what it means. For Marcus, the translator said, rejection equals failure. Failure equals proof that trying is pointless. Pointless effort equals stop trying. For David, the translator said, rejection equals attempt. Attempt equals bravery. Bravery equals evidence that you can do hard things. Same input, opposite outputs. There's a phenomenon in sports that researchers have been fascinated by for decades. Home teams win more, a lot more. In the NBA, home teams win roughly 60% of their games. In soccer, it's even higher in some leagues. And for a long time, people assumed it was about comfort. Familiar locker rooms, no jet lag, sleeping in your own bed. But the research kept pointing somewhere else. It pointed to the crowd. 18,000 people who expect you to win. Who cheer when you score and groan when you miss, but in a way that says you'll get the next one. Who create an atmosphere where success feels inevitable and failure feels temporary. The players aren't playing better because the court is different. They're playing better because they're surrounded by people who believe they're going to win. Now let me ask you something. When you go after something hard, when you take a risk, when you put yourself out there, what does your crowd sound like? Are they chanting your name? Or are they sitting in silence, arms crossed, waiting for you to prove that trying was a mistake? Nellie isn't evil. She doesn't wake up wanting to crush dreams. She's probably been burned herself. She's probably tried and failed and had nobody there to reframe it for her. Her negativity might even feel like protection, like she's saving Marcus from false hope. But here's the thing about protection that feels like pessimism. It works. It absolutely works. If you never try, you never fail. If you never put yourself out there, you never get rejected. Nellie's worldview is internally consistent. It's just that it's a worldview optimized for avoiding pain, not for building a life. And sometimes the people closest to us have become so good at avoiding pain that they've forgotten there was ever anything on the other side worth reaching for. You might not be able to remove the Nellies from your life. They might be woven into your daily existence in ways that can't be easily untangled. But here's what you can control. You can stop bringing your attempts to them. You can stop asking them to translate your experiences, because their translation is predictable. You already know what they're going to say. Why keep feeding your hopes into a machine designed to output hopelessness? Pete didn't lie to David. He didn't say she was totally into you or you almost had her. He told the truth, but he told a different truth. A truth that was equally accurate, but pointed in the direction of possibility rather than defeat. You walked up to Helen of Troy. That's a fact. An objective, verifiable fact. David did do that, and Pete chose to shine a light on that fact instead of the fact that Helen said no. Both facts are true, but only one of them is useful. This is what good friends do. This is what good coaches do. This is what good mentors do. They don't gaslight you into believing failure is success. They help you see the success that was already hiding inside your failure. Because every failure, every rejection, every no contains within it a quieter yes. Yes, you tried. Yes, you had the courage. Yes, you now know something you didn't know before. Yes, you proved you can survive the thing you were afraid of. Pete isn't spinning. He's excavating. He's digging out the gold that was always there, but that Marcus's translator was trained to ignore. Here's something that might be worth sitting with. All progress is incremental. Every single bit of it. There's no such thing as a quantum leap in real life. There's no moment where you go from zero to hero in a single bound. Even the stories that look like overnight success, when you zoom in close enough, are really just a lot of tiny steps that finally became visible. The question isn't whether your progress is incremental. It always is. The question is whether you're allowing yourself to recognize increments as progress. Marcus decided that approaching Helen wasn't an increment. It was a failure. Full stop. No progress recorded. Back to zero. David decided that approaching Helen was an increment. A big one, actually. Progress logged, momentum maintained. On to the next challenge, from a position of strength rather than defeat. They were both right, in a sense. Whatever you decide the increment means is what it means. Part of the struggle is that we quietly invent rules about what counts as winning. But you're the one keeping score. And if you've decided that only dramatic, visible, undeniable wins count as points, then you've designed a game that's almost impossible to win. You've built yourself a scoreboard that mostly shows zeros. But what might happen if you redesigned the scoreboard? What might happen if approaching Helen counted as a point? If sending the email counted? If making the call counted? If trying, just trying, was enough to keep the score moving up? We often work against ourselves by arbitrarily deciding which moments are losses. If we choose to see every attempt as a gain in experience, we might find that we are always winning, provided we stay in the game. There's an inner game happening alongside the outer game, and the inner game might matter more. When David walked toward Cleopatra on day 2, he wasn't just walking with his legs, he was walking with Pete's voice in his head. You're the guy who approached Helen of Troy. He was walking with yesterday's courage as today's fuel. He was walking with a stadium full of supportive memory cheering him on. Marcus walked toward the door, and in his head, Nellie's voice was already playing on repeat. It's a waste of time. He was walking with yesterday's failure as today's chance. He was walking with an empty stadium, maybe even a hostile one, booing him before he even made a move. The external circumstances were identical. The internal stadiums were opposite. And this is why who you surround yourself with matters so much. Not because they change reality, but because they change your experience of reality. They change the soundtrack that plays when you're deciding whether to try again. So what can we do about this? How might someone start building a better crowd? It might start with attention. Noticing who you naturally share your attempts and failures with. Noticing how you feel after those conversations. Do you leave with more energy or less? More hope or less? More desire to try again or more resignation? It might continue with intention. actively seeking out the Petes. They're out there. People who've learned to see failure as data, as progress, as proof of courage. People who've internalized a different translation system and are willing to share it. It might mean finding communities, online or off, where the culture is oriented toward attempt rather than outcome, where showing up is celebrated. Where I tried and it didn't work is met with, "That's amazing that you tried," rather than, "See, I told you." It might even mean becoming a Pete for someone else, because one of the best ways to reinforce a belief is to express it. Every time you cheer someone else's attempt, you're practicing a pattern that makes it easier to cheer your own. There's something beautiful about playing for the love of the game, about swinging, not because you need to hit a home run, but because swinging is what players do. It might be useful to imagine life less like a test and more like a long series of drafts. Drafts are allowed to be messy. Drafts are expected to be imperfect. Drafts only fail when they stop being written. When the outcome becomes less important than the attempt, something strange happens. The pressure releases, the fear shrinks, and paradoxically, the outcomes often improve because you're no longer playing tight. You're no longer afraid of the failure that might come. You've already decided that failure and success are both just different colors of the same participation ribbon. David didn't approach Cleopatra because he was certain it would work. He approached because Pete had helped him build a self-concept where trying was the victory and everything else was just bonus. Every arena has a home team and a visiting team. Every crowd has a bias. Every game is being played with invisible forces pushing for one outcome or another. And for most of the big games in your life, the external crowd might be silent or neutral or even hostile. The world doesn't automatically cheer for you. Strangers don't become invested in your success. But the internal crowd, the voices you carry, the friends whose reactions you anticipate, the stadium you've built in your own mind, that crowd can be cultivated, that crowd can be chosen, that crowd can be designed to cheer exactly when you need it most. Somewhere out there, there might be a Cleopatra at a corner table, waiting for someone brave enough to walk over. And the only difference between the person who walks over and the person who doesn't might just be the crowd in their head, because home court advantage isn't really about the court, it's about the 18,000 people who believe you're going to win. And if you can figure out how to carry that belief with you, if you can fill your internal stadium with the right voices, then every court you step onto starts to feel a little bit like home.